Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israel here for Renaissance Periodization, breaking through strength plateaus, video number 3, periodic training reductions. Here we go. If you haven't seen the other 2 videos in this series, please do, because they're also super nice, and I think they teach you stuff. So, hard training is a requirement in order to make strength gains. But I'll say something that may be taken as controversial, but I think I can substantiate it. Relatively few people that are serious about their strength training are stalling and plateauing because they're not training hard enough. Sometimes they are, but it's an obvious fix to just go harder, right? And people love to back pat themselves. I can't reach my back, my trap I'll have to do, for going hard. And it's not often a problem, right? And in strength training, it's not that hard to go hard because the requisite volumes are pretty low. So you do like a couple triples and you're like, man, fucking went at it today. Like, oh shit, you did 1.5 total minutes of lifting. Whoop-de fucking do. Most people who are, really pretty serious about strength training, they're grinding it in the gym pretty well, at least in any given session. It's usually not a problem. Now, sometimes super laziness can occur for a few days or a few weeks and people hit little plateaus, but they're an easy fix. They ramp things up again. PRs occur. No big deal. Not overly mysterious. However, the opposite problem is probably more common in serious strength trainees, exactly the kind of people that are watching this video like you. Not so many people don't train hard enough, but tons of people train hard and hard and harder and harder without ever backing off, which is a bad thing. How would you know to back off? Well, we're on Instagram and Snapchat or FuckSwipe, wherever you young kids are hanging out nowadays. Where are people telling you, hey, fucking back off, take it easy? Mostly nowhere. In what movies are people getting great results by backing off? Like Dragon Ball Z, when Goku and Gohan came out of the hyperbolic time chamber and Goku was like, Vegeta was like, shouldn't you be going back again to train again for another few days? And he's like, nah, we're just going to more or less take active rest this week. And they just fucked around and they got delayed adaptation, got way stronger, ascended to Super Saiyan 2. But other than Dragon Ball Z and maybe a few other weird anime nobody watches, that really just doesn't happen. Most movies are like, you fucking go harder and that's it. And because this basically is nowhere to be said, most people don't know that backing off is an important part of the process. And a lot of times they just don't ever do it. And there is a cultural heroism about going hard and keeping going. Like when you feel like crap, you're like supposed to push harder, right? Like you fucking get through the pain, suck it up. When people said like, they used to say in wrestling all the time, suck it up. I never really knew what I was supposed to be sucking up. I tell you what, fellas, when I know what to suck up, I suck long and hard. What? Did I really mean that? Maybe I did. So people say other dumb shit like you fucking make your best gains when you push beyond your limits. That's fucking impossible. Your limits are as far as you can push. You make your best gains maybe going close to your limits, maybe to your limits, but beyond doesn't make any goddamn sense. So there's a lot of this cultural lore and just hard at all times. And there's not a lot of cultural lore, even within the lifting community, about taking it easy and taking breaks. And because it sounds like a wussy thing to do. You're like, oh, like, really? Off days? Fuck that. And a lot of people get into this situation where they train hard all the time and never back off. Now, check this out. Of course you're supposed to go hard. You have to push hard to make gains. But strength gains are a balance between pushing hard, backing off to let fatigue decline, and then repeating and pushing hard again. Tons of people just don't know about that balance. They're in the gym, they're pretty serious, and they think like the harder I go, the better. And there's no time for backing off. And they are never drilled in. Also, they sort of drill themselves into the idea that the pushing part is the important part. And they never hear much or enough, in many cases, that the pulling back part is just as important, right? Take it from me. Pulling out is pulling back. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Pulling out's also important. Wear a condom, folks. Come on now. There's STDs out there. COVID's probably an STD. Who the hell knows? Cumulative fatigue is also a thing. All right? A lot of people don't know that they should be pulling back. And what ends up happening is they go harder and harder and hard, and their underlying ability to have strength, their underlying fitness is going up over time. But their fatigue also goes up and can mask the fitness. When you're a beginner, your fitness goes up fast, and because you're pretty fucking weak, your fatigue, you're just not able to do a whole lot of damage to your body because you're fucking weak. You get strong really fast, your fitness goes up fast, your fatigue doesn't go up as fast, and thus you continuously get stronger and stronger and stronger. The difference between your fitness and your fatigue is actually how strong you are. But often when people get to the intermediate phase, for the first time, their fatigue actually starts to catch up to their fitness gains, and that eclipses their fitness completely, and they hit their first plateau. I can go so far as to say that a big fraction of people's first plateaus are the first time they've actually successfully been able to accumulate enough fatigue to eclipse their fitness gains. Not erase them. The fitness is still there under the hood, but you can't see it anymore. You can't express it. You're not actually strong because you're so goddamn beat up and so tired. If you only pulled back on training for gee whiz, even just a short time, your fitness would be very apparent and it'd be like, oh, holy shit, I really did get a lot stronger, but it can look like a plateau if you never pull back away from it. Now, of course, so next question is, how do we bring down the fatigue? Because obviously that's where we're going with this. Of course, not ever going hard will prevent fatigue from ever rising, but it also prevents you from ever getting stronger, so we wipe that off the table. So how do you let fatigue drop in the context of still having hard and consistent training? And there are essentially 5 ways to do it. Off days, technique-only sessions, technique-only half weeks, deloads, and active rest phases. We'll cover all these real quick. They're not that complicated. So off days. If you're going hard, training 6 days a week, you might be accumulating so much fatigue that one off day really doesn't do a drop in the bucket, and you're still accumulating fatigue, and you're plateaued because your fatigue has risen a bit faster than your fitness, or at least the same rate, so you can't even tell that you got stronger. If you switch, especially in strength training, which is super hardcore, to something like maybe only 5 days a week of training, all of a sudden 2 consecutive days drop much more fatigue week to week to week, and then your fitness stays ahead of your fatigue for longer, so you hit more consistent PRs, and your plateaus are not nearly as common, nor maybe they don't occur at all for a long time, and then it's kind of problem solved. But people like to say shit like fucking team no days off. I have a few things to say about that. It's fucking stupid. It sounds dumb when you fucking say it. If you're saying it sarcastically, it sounds funny. If you're saying it for real, holy fucking shit. No good lifters don't take days off. Okay, I don't know any of them that are still alive. And by the way, when you say team no days off, motherfucker, you ain't on no team. Nobody likes you. You don't have any friends. It's just something you put in Instagram and then you cry a lot. There is no team no days off. So stop doing that shit. Take 1 day off at least every week, and maybe consider taking 2 or 3 days off every week. The quality of your training will improve, and then the fatigue will reduce, and you probably will get through a plateau, or maybe at least. Next, technique-only sessions. Some lifts you can train multiple times a week, and you just get better and better and better. No big deal. Their fitness improves, and their fatigue drops off, and then comes up, and then drops off. Some other lifts, man, in some situations, or kind of all the time, you can only train them so many times. So heavy deadlifting, for example, is something you may be able to do once or twice a week. For many people, it's just once a week. You try deadlift heavy 3 times a week and you just go straight to hell. Try it yourself. Nothing good will happen. But if you're training the deadlift, it's a huge technical component to it and a huge sort of raw strength component. If we're only training deadlifts once a week, you kind of feel out of practice every time you do it. You're gaining good strength, but maybe you could gain better strength by deadlifting and still practicing the movement, but not going super hard. In other words, you do a session for deadlifting, which is only the technique, but not the super, super fatiguing overload part. And that turns out that actually does work. So what you can do is you deadlift on Mondays and on Thursdays. Instead of doing hard each time, on Thursdays you come in, you put something like 70 to 80% of your 1 RM on the bar. You do just a few sets of 2 to 4 reps with really, really good technique, really focusing on practice. And you keep your RPE basically between like 3 and 6, incredibly low. And that lets you improve your technique as your fatigue doesn't stabilize. It actually falls during that time. It's like a mini deload for one session that also improves your technique. That can change the fucking game big time and can erase a plateau if you start doing it. you can pre-program this to say every Monday I go hard in deadlift, and every Thursday I go hard on the squat, and I go easy in the deadlift, but it still helps me with my technique. It reduces fatigue. It's all gravy. It's all really good. Or if you're supposed to go in coming hard, and you're like, dude, I'm so beat up. I'm so fucking tired. There's no way it's going to happen. That doesn't mean you just leave and go home. What you can do is, instead of a planned hard session, like let's say 3 Mondays in a row, you went hard on the deadlift, 3 Thursdays in a row, you went easy on it. Next Monday comes up and you're like, weird travel that weekend, your hip's kind of sore, you didn't get enough sleep. You're like, dude, fuck, I'm not hitting any PRs in this session. Fuck it. Just go down to technique only, 70-80% of your 1 rep max, and just a few sets of like triples or something. And what you do is you get a ton of technique out of it, you reduce some fatigue, and when you come back and maybe do the same thing Thursday, or maybe even on Thursday, now you're recovered, you go hard again, and voila, major gains occur. It's a thing. Give it a shot. It's a really, really good idea, especially in a pinch, but also in a pre-programmed fashion. Now, you can have a whole week of high fatigue and poor performance. It's not just like one session here or there. And maybe your cumulative fatigue is a little too high too early. Maybe you have 4 weeks of increasing difficulty and then a deload week. And by sort of the middle of week 3, or the middle of week 2, actually, the end of week 2, you're like, really like, I'm not going to get through 4 weeks of this shit. I'm not going to hit all my planned PRs. This might happen just on 1 or 2 lifts, and it might happen on whole body. But what you can do is you either take whole body or a few lifts, and you do technique only sessions for half a week. So basically, if you train, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, this week, Monday, Tuesday went really not well and you're really high fatigued, take Thursday, Friday, which would normally be hard training sessions, and dial all the lifts back to the sets and reps and the weight and the RPE of a technique only session. After that half week, oh my God, you can bring your fatigue down a ton. It can recharge you for at least a few more weeks of productive training until you make it to your deload, take the whole deload, and then you're super crisp after that. And it allows you to do this without taking a week off, without taking off days, without having your technique be a little rusty, and with the ability to actually improve your technique and just keep getting better. With hypertrophy training, if you're curious, it doesn't fucking work. Technical training doesn't do dick to make your muscles bigger. So practicing mostly unloaded rows doesn't make your lats bigger. But in strength training, just practicing the movement with low loads and crisp technique can help make you stronger. So it's an amazing thing. Strength training is actually kind of easy. You come in, and if you're feeling good, you hit it hard. And if you don't feel good, you hit it easy, but with technique, and both improve you. The hard one improves you more, but the easy one still improves you better than zero. And it's an awesome, awesome formula. Of course, half weeks don't do justice to everything. Each half week of deloading or technique only probably buys you only like another week and a half, maybe 2 weeks of really hard training. And then after that, you just kind of degrade and your joints will fall apart. So at some point, you need a lot of rest, and that's where deloads come in. You've probably heard of them before. And you essentially, what is a deload? There are more complexities to it, and we've had tons of videos about those, and we'll have more in the future. But essentially, it's like technique-only sessions, but for an entire week. Or like half a week of technique-only sessions, and then just a week mostly off of the gym, or half a week off of the gym. Once you do a deload, you restart your programmatic cycle, your new mesocycle, and you ease into harder and harder and harder training, and everything goes super well. A deload can reduce your fatigue back to a workable amount, close to zero, and recharge you for like 4 to 8 weeks of continued accumulation, which means it's often the biggest plateau killer of them all, because again, most people's first plateaus, sometimes all plateaus, result from too much cumulative fatigue, and a deload really just washes that away. Like if you have a lot of fatigue, even a recovery half week might just make you decent, but it won't make you super crisp. But deload, man, it washes away a lot of stuff, and it can really, really, really help you out and just erase your plateau. I would go so far as to say that most people in the general community, not the YouTube strength niche that we're in, they don't even know what a deload is. They just go hard, 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 and then they're like, fuck. And they maybe take a week or 2 off and they come back better. But rather than taking a week or 2 off, you can still do those technique-only sessions. Your technique is improving the entire time. So when you come back in the first week after, you might hit mega PRs because you dropped so much fatigue. That might be a thing. And if you're plateauing, I would highly consider it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you guys this. After asking folks, like, is your nutrition recovery in order? And after asking them, like, are you really plateaued or just making slow gains? Probably one of the next things I do is ask them what their deloading structure is like. And a lot of times I get like a blank look, like, what do you mean structure? Like, do you deload? And they're like, what's that? I'm like, all right, sweet. I just solved your plateau for you. You're welcome. Take an easy week of training. Like, really, that's not going to make me better. And you explain fitness fatigue dynamics, get the same black stare. You just say, hey, like, just fucking do it. And they do it. And they're like, oh my God, I'm hitting PRs all the time. Super, super great. Deloads go very far into reducing fatigue, but sometimes they don't go far enough, especially in a few circumstances. If you've been training hard months and months and months, even taking deloads, you might be pretty beat up, especially if it's strength training, especially powerlifting, competitive training, really fucks you up. Psychologically, you're just tired of giving it your all, and that's okay to admit out loud, maybe just in the quiet of your own home. And especially you can take a beating on joints and connective tissues. That's the thing, it happens. And sometimes it generates aches and pains, which can prevent PRs from happening. Even though you have the strength, every time you lower your bench press, your shoulder feels kind of fucking weird and painful. And you're like, I don't know, man. I don't want to go for a PR because I don't know what the fuck's going on there. I don't want anything to pop off. And that's a legitimate concern. Usually it doesn't happen after a few weeks and even months of training, but multiple months in a row it can occur. So what ends up happening is an active rest may be in order. An active rest is really simple. In the simplest way you do it is this. You take a deload week like normal, and then you take a week of just living like a normal person and just not even going to the gym. You know, you walk around, walk your dog, sit on your porch and smoke cigars and watch people walking by. Whatever it is you do for fun, stare at a wall. That's what I like to do. It's going to take all that training fatigue and lower it almost to zero. You will lose some fitness, just a tiny little bit, but that's going to recharge your body for another half year or year of training ahead. It should be done after most hardcore powerlifting meets. You should take a deload that you probably took into the meet, and then you should probably take a week off after every meet. I would highly recommend that. And otherwise, if you're not powerlifting, you're just training for strength, I would say you should take a deload and then a week off right after. Them being together is good because it really brings all the fatigue down as opposed to them being separate. And a lot of times the best time to do that is like during the holidays, like Christmas time and shit. Because, like gyms are closed and your family probably wants you to go to Baltimore to see your aunt like you do every Christmas. And you're like, fucking, what the fuck? But you don't have to worry about some shit. Now, I will say, hilariously, if you do happen to be in the Baltimore area, Exile Fitness on Pulaski Highway, actually, is one of the best gyms in the entire world. It's so big, you won't be able to wrap your mind around it. And they have like 6 of every different machine from every different era. They have like hack squats from the fucking 1970s, 80s, 90s, and 3 modern ones. It's nuts. But in any case, if you happen to be in Baltimore and you're with your aunt, maybe you're in another city that doesn't have one of the world's best gyms, and it's a good time to just take a break. And that's awesome. Go on vacation, go with your family, go with your friends, go alone and stare at a wall. Those kinds of things are great because you will become much better after. And a lot of times you'll smash through all your plateaus. If you think that real athletes don't take time off, almost all the best Russian powerlifters I've ever met, I know plenty of them in person and talked to them and all in Russian and shit like that, they take like 1 or 2 months off every year, off of training and supplements and everything after their big world-class competitions, and then they ease into training after for the rest of the time and compete a bunch of times and then win stuff and then take another 1 to 2 months off. Ronnie Coleman, the king, after he won the Olympia and then he did the European tour, which was like 2 or 3 weeks after, he won all those shows too. He would take 1 to 2 months off, often 2 months off of training altogether. He just maybe train recreationally, like get a little pump, or maybe nothing at all. No supplements, diet, just whatever he wanted, just keep the protein decent, and that was it. Okay, and as Ronnie Coleman, he won 8 Mr. Olympias. It's more common for high-level athletes to take plenty of time off than it is for them to be psychotic and never take time off. So team no days off, if it was a team, it would be a fucking shitty team. Right? So in conclusion, training makes you stronger by incurring adaptations, but it also leads to the accumulation of fatigue by pulling back on occasion, sometimes in smaller ways like off days and technique-only sessions, sometimes in bigger ways like technique half weeks and deloads and active rests. You can make sure your cumulative fatigue is both not rising too fast and also, when it rises, is occasionally brought down and thus is not holding you back. And then if you're still struggling with gains and you're still plateaued, you can rule out cumulative fatigue as a problem and focus on the more detailed aspects of your training. Though I will say, I've seen a lot of lifters worry about the super details, like am I doing too many sets of 5 and not enough sets of 6, shit like that. Is my bench like this or like that? And you get them to actually do a deload or an active rest, and it turns out that they make mega PRs for months after that, and the cumulative fatigue was the problem. So it's a thing that is responsible for a huge fraction of failing to PR. And if you address it, and the funny thing is, it's the easiest thing to address in the world because you do less and you get more. If and when those folks deload, no more plateau. And in your case, that might be the case too. Give it some thought. In any case, don't think about it for longer than a week, because I'll see you again in a week with the next installment of this series. Peace.